So guys, it's been a while, so I wanted to give everyone a quick update before diving into the new ships as usual. I've got a bit of a sore throat right now, but otherwise I'm doing fine. I haven't uploaded in a while, and that's just due to me focusing on other hobbies. After my talk with Sam Hart, I ended up watching quite a few anime. A couple that left a pretty big impression, which we didn't really discuss in that conversation, were Hibike Euphonium Season 3 and the Violet Evergarden movie, which I never got around to watching. Both really wowed me with the overall execution, and they've definitely become two of my favorite anime of all time, recency bias or not. Other than that, I got into the arena mode on League of Legends, and I've been playing a lot of that before it goes away. I could have been making some videos in the meanwhile, but I'm the type of person to get really into one thing, and then put all my time into it, often at the detriment of everything else. Since I wasn't really engaged with Azur for a bit, I just ended up not forcing myself to make videos. I was working on the in-depth torpedoes guide, but even though good torpedo choices are relatively scarce, I found myself writing way too much for what it was worth, and it kinda turned me off it halfway through. Other than the torpedoes and auxiliaries guide, I feel like I've made most of the video ideas that I wanted to, and I'm not particularly excited about recycling video topics, even though it's probably a good idea to get new viewers. You know what? If there's a video of mine that you feel might be updated, let me know in the comments and I'll consider making an update on the topic. And then there's also a couple of periods between the February and May events, as well as the September and December events, when there isn't much going on in Azur in general, with how much more important the UR ships are compared to your typical SSR. I'm also pretty much done with fleet tech. Not just the important stuff, but even submarine evasion and cargo ships and all of that. So now I'm just raising duplicates of ships like Janus and Longwu that I really like. But there's not much reason to be on grinding for that. Despite all that though, I've never had a thought of quitting or anything like that. It's a very small commitment to keep up with the dailies and events at this point, but there will be times where I'm more engaged than others. Now, let's take a look at the new ships. The datamine spreadsheet that I usually reference hasn't been updated yet, so I'll be showing MrLar's Azur database that Sam Hart brought to my attention. I'll leave a link to it in the description. I'm not really used to this new layout, being so used to the old table, but it has all the information that we really need. First, let's start with a new light cruiser, whose name I'm not confident in pronouncing. Provincien or something? The first thing that stands out is this. It reminds me of something. Next is the fact that she can equip up to 3 anti-air guns. This, along with her good base anti-air and 20% anti-air buff, makes her a capable anti-air carry, on the level of San Diego Retrofit without her unique augment and Shimanto. She also has a very useful heal, targeted at the lowest HP member of the fleet, which is the best type of targeting, and with no strings attached, like a chance to activate or up to a certain number of activations per battle. All that's required is that there are planes for her to shoot down, which is where you would want to be using her anyway. The last thing we need to consider are her barrages, of which she has 3. Since Manchu was kind enough to give us the skill training skip alongside the new event, I've already maxed out her skills so we can see what they look like already at max rank. The first barrage has a total damage of over 4,000, which is extremely powerful, but obviously it's not going to all hit the same target, which is fine in campaign where there are many enemies. It only has a 70% chance to activate, but if it fails to activate, then she gains a super high value damage reduction instead. This is a rare occasion of a good RNG condition, although if she's not going to be the main tank, it might not be too impactful. I think she is tanky enough to be your main tank in campaign though, with her high stats and luck, provided that you can support her with other forms of healing and damage mitigation. Her second barrage has a total base damage of 1.5k and activates every 10 seconds, and her all-out assault has a total damage of about 500. By the way, these are base damage numbers before firepower and damage buff scalings, so they only mean anything if you use them to make relative comparisons with other barrages. All of her barrages are stopped by shields, and barely any of it is targeted, but nonetheless, it's still a ton of damage to be tossing out constantly. Don't worry about her damage looking lackluster in the footage, as she is at a level disadvantage here. A fair comparison, I think, would be someone like Bayard, who we know deals a ton of damage in campaign with her powerful barrages, just like Provincian would theoretically, and I think Provincian's barrages compare quite favorably. She is lacking some of the damage steroids and also a decently powerful torpedo slot that Bayard has, as you would likely want to use her with the AAA configuration. But what she likely lacks in damage and survivability, she should make up for spades in anti-air. Overall, I think she's a solid option in campaign, particularly in the later stages, being able to hold her own against the likes of Shimanto and Bayard, depending on what you need. I think Shimanto at Phase Simulation 5 is probably better overall, but if you're a new player and you get your hands on Provincian, it's probably going to be a huge boon to your dock without having to get Shimanto all the way to Phase Simulation 5. Next up is Kazan. She's quite straightforward, having a decently strong and consistent AoE barrage, and just like Provincian, healing targeted at the ship that needs it the most. It also doubly activates when your fleet is in trouble, which can't really complain about that. The wording of her heal here is a bit ambiguous, as the her could mean Kazan, or the ship that is receiving the heal, but it's referring to the ship that is being healed, so she excels with higher HP tanks like large cruisers, compared to someone like Volga, who heals other ships based off of Volga's own HP. Her increasing your entire fleet's evasion will also benefit low evasion and high HP tanks like the large cruisers, more than evasion-based ones. I wouldn't put too much stock into her damage redirection, as unlike her healing, it chooses a random vanguard that might not need the effect. But even without it, I think she's going to be one of the best options for a campaign amongst all gold battleships. In summary, she's a straightforward, reliable campaign battleship that provides useful support in the form of targeted healing and evasion, synergizing well with high HP, low evasion tanks. As for the purple ships, I did look over them briefly, but nothing particularly stood out. The skins for this event really makes it feel like a collab. Along with the fantasy theme of the ships and the theme of the skins, these skins don't look out of place at all next to the Ryza collab. Okay, since I didn't cover Franklin and Santa Fe Unreleased, I'll briefly go over them before I wrap up. Franklin is a very powerful and consistent gold carrier who is among the ranks of the strongest SX class carriers like Enterprise and Shangri-La. Her first skill, which improves her barrage, as well as the barrage modifiers themselves, slightly shores up her weakness against heavy armor. I think she would be the best against a medium armor carrier with an LA9 loadout, so I took her out for a spin against Hornet meta at level 125 and 100 affection. Yes, there is both Helena and the artillery barrage. Not every ship has the privilege of simultaneously having both the highest damage output and a route, like Soyuz and Nakhimov. So with the damage loss from bringing Eldritch just for the slow, Helena is crucial. Anyway, the point is that Franklin's damage is great for an SSR carrier by today's standards. Against heavy armor, she should be solid, but there are probably better options outside of USS. Against light armor, I'd assume that Enterprise is still better, but I haven't got the calcs or the data to back that up. One minor thing that she is lacking in is her reload, which might make her a bit too slow for those 4-strike setups taking advantage of Yorktown 2's cooldown reduction, but in the age of LA9s, that isn't as important as before. Finally, we have Santa Fe, who is pretty straightforward. She's got some damage and AA buffs, and she has barrages. I'm going to completely ignore the flare because 40% is 40%. Looking at her barrage numbers after Provincians though, they're quite underwhelming, so yeah, not too much to get excited about here. Maybe one day we'll finally get a Cleveland-class ship that buffs carrier damage. Although, I won't write out the possibility that I'm underestimating how much the firepower from her secondary gun and firepower buffs contributes to her damage. Okay, that's about it for this update. Let me know if you think I made any mistakes, which I'm expecting to happen, between using the new layout for the barrage data and being checked out from the game for a little bit, but nonetheless I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.